Hi, my name is Jay, and I'm a solution consultant here with Bill. In this video, we want to show you where you can generate your dev key, find your org ID, as well as where you can create sync tokens and find your spend and expense token so that you can authenticate with Bill's APIs. Remember that, as always, developer.bill.com will describe all of this in detail. And when you go to developer.bill.com, you'll be able to create sandbox environments within Bill so that you can test all of your API code. And we encourage you to build there and work through your workflows. When you're ready to go to production, we will describe in developer.bill.com how you can promote that code to production with the correct API endpoints. And when you do that, you will need to generate the dev keys and token IDs in your production accounts again, as they are different between our different environments. But we're going to start around our accounts payable and accounts receivable APIs. And when you look at our documentation, you'll see to be able to create a session ID within our APIs for accounts payable and accounts receivable, you need four components. You need a dev key, an organization ID, username, and password. Well, you know your username and password, but this video is going to describe how do you generate that dev key and organization ID. To do that, when you log into Bill, you'll be able to go to Settings, and under Settings, there is a Sync and Integrations tab, as well as Manage Developer Keys tab. From here, you'll be able to generate your developer key. You'll agree to our terms and service, and the system will generate a dev key here in a few seconds. While we're waiting for that to be generated, you'll be able to see that we also display the organization ID of the Bill.com account that you're logged into. So I'm logged in to Mach 5, as well. If I hover over that, it'll show the org ID. So each Bill.com account will have an organization ID. We're going to talk about that here in just a second, as one dev key can work with multiple org IDs. So now that I have my dev key, I'll be able to view that when I click on the eyeball there. And I have all four components now to create a session ID within Bill.com's APIs. So I have my dev key, I have my org ID, I have my username and password, and I'll get a session ID here. Let's test it out. This will generate a session ID. And from here, I could take that session ID and go do what I need to within our APIs. Now, we also offer what we call a sync token. So if you want to interact with our APIs and not have to use a username and password, if you want data to exchange, you have the ability to generate an API token. When you do that, the API token replaces the values for username and password. Okay, so under settings, if we go back into settings, you'll see there's another tab called tokens. All right, and when we create a new token, I can name it whatever I like. So we'll say API test, and that's my token name, and it will generate a GUID there. And now I've got my API token. When you use this to authenticate within Bill, the API name will replace username, and the API token will be your password value. Okay, and that will allow you to create a session ID. Tokens come in really handy for a number of reasons. One, you don't have to share or use a specific user's password to be able to integrate via APIs. And two, you don't take up a Bill.com user license within accounts payable. Now, keep in mind, one API sync tokens are limited in what they can do within our APIs. You're able to push data, you're able to pull data, but you cannot initiate any money movement with our sync tokens. A fully authenticated, validated user must be required in our APIs to initiate payments or move any money. So keep that in mind. Going back to those dev keys, one dev key can be used on multiple org IDs. So again, for Mach 5, here is my organization ID. I've created that dev key. But what if I actually manage multiple Bill.com accounts? So you'll see underneath my switcher tab on the left-hand side, I have multiple Bill.com accounts. I do the accounts payable for Kentucky Thoroughblades as well. Okay. And they're a different org ID within Bill.com. So again, if I go to settings, sync and integrations when I'm logged in under Kentucky Thoroughblades, you can see that the org ID for Kentucky Thoroughblades is different. Now, within developer.bill.com, we offer documentation on how you can programmatically retrieve all of the organization IDs underneath a user. Okay. But you do not need to create multiple dev keys. One dev key will work on unlimited org IDs. Okay, so keep that in mind. No need to generate a dev key per Bill.com account that's under your username. All right. The other token that we have in the system are for our console users. Our console users are typically accounting firms or organizations that manage many Bill.com accounts. Okay. And in our console, you also have the ability to generate a console API token. So in consoles, you have staff, and those staff have access to different Bill.com accounts. So here is my name. I'm in the Richter CPA's console. I have access to a few different Bill.com accounts. I want to be able to use APIs across all of these org IDs. Again, these will all be different org IDs within our APIs. What's really convenient about our console API token is I can use Jay Harden's login, which would be my email, that would be my username. But what if I don't want to share my password? I still want to be able to log into Bill.com. I still need to be able to use the user interface, but I don't need my password visible in APIs. That's where the console API token is really important. So I could generate an API token here from the console, and that replaces my password parameter when we log in for APIs. So if we go back to our session ID here, I'll be able to create a session ID, but instead of the password parameter, I will change that password parameter to API token with a capital T. Again, we describe this in developer.bill.com. If you search for console token, you'll see this. I'll be able to create a session ID using my username, but I don't have to use my specific password. This also is really important if your console uses single sign-on. Single sign-on will not work within our API authentication. So we could turn on these console tokens for you. So we'll generate essentially an API password, but your token is your password, and you just change that parameter when you log in. All right. And lastly, for our spend and expense module, you have the ability to generate a token in that environment. Now, on the spend and expense module, when you generate the token, that's all you need. You don't need an org ID. You don't need a dev key. You don't need username and password. To authenticate via our spend and expense API endpoints, you just need an API token, right? And so from here, you have the ability to generate an API token inside of Spend and Expense by going to your profile. And when you're in your profile, you will see the settings icon here, or a settings tab. And in that settings tab, you have the ability to generate a new token. When you generate that new token, it will spit out a long GUID, which now becomes the API token that you will use when interacting with our spend and expense API endpoints. And you can use that API token and get results and be able to do whatever you need from a spend and expense module aspect. So hopefully this was helpful to describe how to generate your dev key, how to retrieve your org ID, how to generate a API sync token for accounts payable and accounts receivable, how to use console tokens if you need to, and how to generate that spend and expense token as well. So again, developer.bill.com will answer all these questions. and look forward to working with our developers.